Hello, my fellow Skizzle typals. What up, no? This is Carlisle Fletcher with High Lit, and you might be wondering what that is. That's a watch. But you might be wondering why it's dark and why it's the middle of the night. Well, because we're trying to reach out to a larger audience, we're actually trying to upload at a reasonable time, and the only way I can think to do that is to just have it ready and scheduled. So this is kind of a short notice, but you know, we're fucking here, we're fucking ready. Anyways, let's get into the show. Today we're going to be talking about MDMA. Probably end off with Koji's music, Koji Tavi. Don't really yeah, so let's get into it. Anyways, so let me get my monologue up. Very professional. But things seem mostly obvious in hindsight, and the popularity of cannabis in the 2010s is one of those things that most people feel like they could have predicted. Everybody feels like they're the weed guy. Everybody feels like, you know, they were a part of that, you know? So similarly with social media, Uber, and the rest of that we all kind of feel like we have a part in because it's our generational change. The legalization of MDMA and mushrooms will have a similar effect. So MDMA and mushrooms are in the same sort of lane where I think that in the next 10 years, we're going to see these things be mainstreamly... They're going to be mainstream. People are going to be growing in their house. They're going to be fine, you know? And it's like, I see that as the future, and I see it seeming like an obvious change. So... not to say that anybody shouldn't expect it, but just to say that, like, if you don't expect it, don't be surprised if it happens. And it doesn't even sound far-fetched to discuss this because they're on the way. The industry seems to have changed its tune. It's changed its tune. However, from this in March, you can see, like, sort of what I would describe as, like, a bad attitude. Sorry for just drinking water, but I know we're all over the place. But so this is a media study on the effects of, like, media and psychedelics, and what they found was that people were more likely to use ketamine or MDMA if they saw positive media coverage in the mainstream journalism, you know? So it's like if somebody who they believe to be a trusted source talks about it in a positive manner, people are more likely to use it, which is like, no duh. I would just say, like, yeah, that's how fucking life works. And it asks a sort of sensationalist question through the premise. The author is implying that people will be more likely to use it recreationally due to the positive media conversation around it, but I believe that the framing is off base. All the MDMA propaganda that I can find which would reach a mainstream audience focuses on PTSD, particularly threatening veterans. And here, in this video, you can have, this is by Vice, and it features Ben Anderson, who's one of their guys. And I think that this is going to be one of the spearheads. I mean, it's already at 100,000 views, and I think that it's like things like this that are really going to be reaching the public. And he got PTSD from working within war zones. He also describes the case of Ed, who so 3 minutes in, we have these two veterans here. That's Ben, but these two he's facing here, who before this they were on booze, they were on, you know, like street drugs, they were like addicts, you know, and like they were really struggling, and they like had attempted suicide at several different points in their life. Like it really was not, there seemed to be no way forward for them at all. This guy had gotten down to the point of stripping copper out of abandoned properties for money. And so here, what I'm going to say is, like, here's like the high-lit transition is like into like a little bit of Machiavellianism. So ultimately we have to understand what statecraft and what the state is. So what statecraft is and what the state is. The state isn't a religious or a moral body. The state exists for the preservation of itself, as it is made up, and as it is made up of people, the people are included in that self. Ideally, the state works as a mechanism that produces a surplus. And this might sound like heartless language, but the idea isn't that everyone should feel valued or good, but that enough money is produced so that there are excesses which can be given to charity or other causes which a society believes are viable. So, like, the idea of being a good person might not look good, it might not seem good, but it is actually good. And, like, here I think that there's a sort of religious hermeneutic that's very important, is that, so the idea of God... is like the idea of what is socially adaptive, or like what is evolutionarily adaptive, or like what is, you know, ultimately going to be healthy for, you know, the larger public. And the reason why I bring this up is that, so if you have these sort of if you have PTSD, sorry, I fucking completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, so the idea is that you have to, so it's like when you're focusing on a collective, it's the idea behind it isn't that, like, the idea behind it is that, like, whatever benefits humanity would be more worthwhile than, like, just getting, like, you know, a third chicken sandwich or something like that, like, you know, like getting to use heroin or getting to buy a Ferrari. It's like these things might seem cool, but ultimately, like, what's the fucking benefit from it? Meanwhile, when you get like, what's the point of politics? The state doesn't exist for Da Vinci or Kant. These geniuses are well enough alone. The smartest people don't need help. Indeed, there is this idea that as technology improves, there will be a singularity where work is no longer needed. But as pointed out in a recent book, which Professor Dutton covered in, like, I think 2 episodes ago, a further stratified economy with a smaller and smaller upper class with more and more of the money is not self-sustaining or recreating. Machines are used by trained individuals to extract more and more value from less and less work. Eventually, that cuts more and more people out of the economy and puts them on welfare or UBI. Once this occurs, then the society is keeping a larger and larger population afloat, which cannot afford to spend money, and thus the economy does not move, and the empires that the upper class have built will eventually collapse as more meaningful labor is needed to be done as their infrastructure and machines collapse. It is imperative for a state to take care of the middle class and the average person, because geniuses alone, or even an oligarchy alone, does not make a healthy society. For humans to exist, you must have dynamism. So, like, dynamicism. You must have monks and virgins, crack addicts and poets. There must be a place for those who are slow, for those who are quick, those who work with their hands, those who work with their minds. All these different temperaments and skill sets must be engaged fully to reap the maximum benefit for the state from itself. Why? Because we need cars and food and theater and healthcare and entertainment and all of these things that make society move. It doesn't take a genius to make the best sandwich in the world. Perfectly average people have contributed some of the greatest accomplishments of mankind. Perfectly average people have contributed some of the greatest achievements of mankind. Some geniuses slept away a whole life. It is not in the interest of the state to serve only the exceptional, but to serve the average as well. In other words, to serve reality. Your army, your workforce, and your country is made up of average people. That's what the word means. It means most people. So now, accepting this, let's look at how we should treat people. We want to maximize them not only for taxes, but for output. A genius idea or a great idea cannot be undervalued by the state, and so they should try to push everyone to productivity. This means that technically gifted individuals should be put into an environment in which they will succeed, such as trade school programs starting in middle school. So the idea is that, like, if we're looking at a human being and trying to maximize the profit and the, like, you know, the potential of this human being and, like, extracting the maximum value out of them. Like, so let's say we have, like, someone who's really talented with, like, tinkering with things. You know, it's like they're making robotics and they're making, like, you know, flamethrowers on this robot, and they're, like, making all these ramps, and it's like, why not put them in an auto shop? You know, like, why not guide this child into a useful, marketable skill that will be able to float them at least until they're 50? You know, so it's like just giving this positive foundation, this positive reinforcement, this just we'll be doubling up on this on next episode, don't worry. But, you know, so it's like it's just trying to make motivation occur. That's what we really need to do as a society, especially living in America, where it's like so many people are just dropped out of society because they do not feel like they are a part of it. So accepting this, so a genius idea or a great idea, which can come from anyone, cannot be undervalued by the state, and so they should try to push everyone to productivity, because we want to maximize people not for taxes but for output. We want to have them contribute the most. This means that technically gifted individuals should be put into an environment in which they will succeed. I already talked about that. But now let's venture into the topic of substance abuse. Why would somebody use a substance? According to Nixon, because they're satanic people trying to ruin the country and themselves. However, many schizophrenics, those with PTSD, those with personality disorders, those with pain disorders, and those with digestive issues, etc., are all likely to attempt to improve their subjective health through the use of alternative substances, particularly cannabis, MDMA, LSD, mushrooms, and that sort of things, and entheogens. So here we have veterans, creative types, and normal Americans, all using these substances to try to address criminally underinvested in emotional ailments stemming from a sick society. Instead of being willing to offer these people empathy, America has imprisoned thousands for these substances, ending up with more people per capita than anywhere ever, including the fucking gulag. Instead of trying to encourage these people in their lives and giving them a break, we raped their futures and permanently stunted their ability to contribute to our society. By we, I mean the for-profit prisons that in large part run our government and have completely poisoned the foundations of our society to the point where we only have a warped state. And when a study is being done on people, warning people of trying substances because of positive media coverage, I value the point, but I raise an eyebrow. Sure, these substances, by name, cannabis, MDMA, and LSD, so the mushrooms, so like those are the ones that I am advocating for, have caused freak accident, but they have not imprisoned entire generations of fathers for a parasitic class of jailers to profit. So here I'd like to reference this is like from this year. It's a podcast. It's a lovely podcast. Mount Sinai posted it, and it's with Rachel Yehuda, Dr. Rachel Yehuda. She started a new department in a school, but I just wanted to go through some points that they made here. So 13 minutes in, she discusses how recreational use of MDMA really just doesn't work for the therapy, and it isn't the same thing. The way we discuss the substance has a very particular model because it stems from careful work. Honestly, after years of covering pharmacology, the studies done on pharmaceuticals are laughable because all of them are bought out. You know, so it's like you have these pill companies that are producing pills that are essentially lobbying, where they're paying these researchers to do studies, and if they don't like the results, they just shop around and go to a different researcher that will take the money. And also, scientists are criminally underfunded, so they're more likely to engage in this sort of activity. Meanwhile, the studies done on alternative substances, due to their illegality, have flipped back and forth. You know, there's an argument, there's a lively debate, and there's also incredible meticulous attention to detail, where there's brain scans, there's you know, EKGs, and there's like blood work and all this shit. There's like serious work being done available for the public to review, and it feels like true science because we know nothing. Nobody knows anything for a fact, and the world of pharmacology is like the religion of juicing. You know, it's like that fucking basically they're just this is such a silly bit. I don't know why I'm doing this, but yeah. Oh shit, there's an ad. God damn it. Wow, pyrocynical suggestion. I haven't seen that in a fucking while, huh? But yeah, so here, you know, it's like the father juicing, you know? It's like that fucker. So I'm just dropping that video there for you know, just for cultural enrichment, cultural value. That was a really important one. But anyways, so this is a comedy show. Just like Lenny Bruce is a comedian, I am also a comedian. Take everything with a grain of salt. But seriously, whatever medications have been prescribed to your family, read the label. Look it up on Google Scholarly. Look it up on whatever. And read through it yourself. Look at the side effect profiles. Look at what they've reported these things do to people. And see the side effects listed and see how many, like, what the percentages are. Risperdal makes teen boys grow tits. They'll talk all their shit about how we don't know about any of these alternative substances, which were mainstream in history. But they'll talk shit on what all these mainstream medicines from history will do to you, but they won't mention the bad shit that all the modern mainstream pills will, which really are downstream from the fucking Nazis. Like, it literally is, to the best of my understanding, an implementation of Nazi medicine. And at 5:30 in this podcast and at 15:30, we hear a point echoed where she says that talk therapy and medication are the best we have, and that's good, but they're not good enough. She then doubles down by saying MDMA is designed for you to stop taking it. You're not supposed to continue this therapy forever. It's not something to flatten your mood or change you, but to help you cope with being alive. It's helping you change your mind. Doctors don't even claim that their meds are fixes. They're just band-aids to be put on a wound which will never close. So why does this show so much promise? Well, PTSD can be from going to war, but it can also be from war going to you, or even just abuse. It's a learned mechanism that works in a crisis, but not separated from it. if only there was a way to reprocess things, to unset unhealthy patterns imbued in you through trauma or poor parenting. According to Dr. Yehuda, this is possible because MDMA acts as a sort of emotional protection, what I would compare to a condom or a dental dam when discussing sources of trauma. Why might that be? Well, here we have, is this the right link? I think this is the right link. So here we have more than 30 years after MDMA was placed in Schedule 1, this researcher were interested in the hottest topics in social neuroscience, neuroplasticity, and early development. As part of their work, they wanted to explore the role oxytocin might play in social development. Classically thought of in the context of obstetrics, oxytocin was garnering attention for studies linking it to everything from autism to orgasm. Dolan's team was interested in the hormone's role with critical window periods, discrete times during which individuals have a heightened ability to learn. The team faced a problem, though. Oxytocin does not readily cross the blood-brain barrier, but it turns out there's a trick. Separate research had shown that MDMA administration leads to the downstream release of oxytocin in the brain. So Dolan's team used MDMA to attempt to reopen critical windows of social reward learning, and it worked. MDMA helped mature mice to learn social behaviors normally only learned during youth. They also confirmed that MDMA's effects were dependent on oxytocin pathways. But there was another crucial detail. The drug didn't work on its own. Adult mice given MDMA and kept in isolation did not learn new behaviors. The drug only worked to induce plasticity when given in conjunction with social and environmental input. So here I'd like to use this video to show, because there's the footage of Ed, and you'll see this is his therapy session, and you see father, mother. And now we can go to Ben, right? So let's take it when he's fucking tripping. I think he only did one therapist. But still, here you see the traditional model where there's the male and female psychiatrist on either side. He has a little sport dog there. I hate chihuahuas. But, still, it's a safe environment. It's good. They have blindfolds, and they just take it, and it's very relaxed. It's a very specific sort of therapy that is meant to help people through this. It's not just... So it's not like you're just going to, go to a rave and then get fucked up and it's going to radically transform your entire life. So MDMA is not, I would not really recommend it in a uncontrolled environment, but I think therapeutically we already have a lot of research and a lot of trials that are showing the legitimacy. It is more effective than traditional antidepressants. It's more effective than a lot of other things. And you have these people who even doctors do, there are doctors who are able to realize that pills aren't reaching people and that they're not fully effective, so there's people who are on the side of us on saying hey man, maybe we just don't understand the human brain like we think we do. Maybe it's not just an engine, maybe it's more of praying to the gods. And I think that this is getting there. So just to kind of hint at what we're going to get into soon too, is that Montessori schooling is compared or called a sort of holistic approach in teaching. And I think that I do really like that word because it sounds like hippy dippy bullshit, but then you realize that it's it just means thinking of a bigger picture rather than just focusing on micro bits. Rather than thinking about how you can get an antibacterial soap that will kill all the bacteria in your house, you think about maybe my bacteria on my skin's fucked up. Maybe there's actually something that I need to do to balance the microorganisms that live within me and on me, rather than trying to kill everything. So it's living within yourself and with yourself rather than against yourself. And I think that holistic options kind of allow us to think about because I think that we have this very segmented life, where it's this is for this is for this is for this, and then people think that it's I gotta be energetic when I go to the gym, and then I gotta be peaceful when I go to the opera house, and then I gotta be resilient when I go to work, and it's just all these different moods and modalities and things like that, and it's but what about all of life at once? What is all of life at once? And I think that that question hits at the point and hits deeper than the question, what is the meaning of life? Because life all at once should be a complete picture. You should understand adolescence. You should understand early adulthood. You should understand adulthood. You should understand being elderly, and you should understand passing away. You should understand all of these things as a complete part of the cycle. And every day you should understand your plot. You know, it's not like you should know how you die. It's not like you should know where you're going, but you should feel comfortable within the society to essentially have humility and know your role and you know, know your place and play your role. Because it's more important to contribute and to be part of a healthier, larger thing, you know. All of life at once means that it's like, so when you're a kid, there's a way to argue with everybody without disrespecting them. Like, one of the things that, like, you know, it's like you learn how to be less of a sociopath as you grow older. And like, one of the things I remember doing is that, like, you know, as a child you don't really care exactly about what other people are doing, but then, like, I just learned, like, that it's nice to. So then it's like, you know, like, I just learned to spend more and more time listening to, like, even adults. It was particularly adults, because kids are interesting to kids. You know, they have stories that are relevant to you. But, like, when you're talking to an adult, you're like, I just don't understand. But then it was like, you know, you just play along with it long enough, and then it's like, it's a good thing to build, you know? It's like this good thing to have. And it's like, even though I didn't understand what I was doing, I still understood that as a child, it was my place to try to be nice to adults. You know, you don't need to spend every single relationship defined by opposition. I'd fuck anybody using that against me, by the way. I can hear it in my head, people quoting that one. Fuck you. But yeah. So now we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back into the weeds. So I think that something that needs to be discussed is the idea of alternatives. Because it's like, yeah, my entire life I have not felt represented, and to this day I do not feel represented. And I think that most people in my generation identify with that. And the thing about it is that it's like, I feel like I want pretty concrete things. I want no drug criminality. I want mental health reform. I want it to be easier for young women to start families and for young men to start families. I want transport. And I want people to be able to take care of themselves. You know, so like, if that's an inner city family that doesn't have access to Wi-Fi, get them Wi-Fi. But if that's like, you know, a rural family and an inability for like their child to get to work, maybe it's like helping them relocate to a place that has more infrastructure, you know? Just things like this. Well, so the thing I wanted to bring up was, so this is the party affiliation among people in Michigan. So, as you can see, 34 rep, 19 independent, and 47 Dem, which means that we have like a 14% discrepancy with the national average in Democrats, because I think the national average is about 33. And yeah, we have 14% more. But to get into the monologue, young people are often the people of change, but there doesn't necessarily need to be a revolution. Change needs to happen, and soon, but incremental change is the only way to implement surgery without accidental death. The prisons are awful, schools are broken, society is twisted, even our roads are wrong, but we can fix this by simply doing better. There are always proactive steps you can take to improve the world around you. Cleaning your room is a silly meme to someone unmoved by individualism, but cleaning your street, weeding your community garden, feeding the hungry, all this makes sense to everybody except for sociopaths. Similarly, my nitpick with Christ is that do unto others as you would have done unto you is an incomplete idea, because one should do unto others as they would have want done unto them within divinity. So treat others as they would like you to do, if doing so is healthy and pleases God. Resist demons but love all souls, rather than project your ideal of goodness onto everyone else's empty vessel. And what I was going to say earlier is that the idea of God is pro-social adaptive behavior. So even as an atheist, even as a somebody who doesn't necessarily believe in the Abrahamic Yahweh, Allah, etc., The idea isn't that there is literally this deity which is in the higher ups, which is like there to, judge, watch, and manipulate you. It could also be that what is divine and what is God is simply good, and like what can be done to, it's positive action. It's something which is, that's what you can look at the idea that way, and I think that is actually quite useful to look at it that way. So yeah, we're getting back on track. Because that's what I meant to say about that idea. But however, so also I'm a fucking mercenary. So if you don't get attached to me holding on to any ideas, because I'm a mercenary. However, the traditional American political system has, except for like this shit, has failed us every year. In every election, everyone says it might be broken. But so what we have to do is just pick a side, not knowing that they're getting played every fucking time they do that. There's no real sides, especially in incorporated living situations in the Midwest. Here we have proof that the majority of Democrats are aligned with us. The majority of Democrats are actually not even like liberal. So like you can see here, Democrats and the independents are both equally moderate. You have 36% of people who consider themselves moderate. 19% of Democrats consider themselves conservative. Okay. I don't know. But yeah, 42 of Democrats consider themselves liberal. They should have a progressive here too. But yeah, 36. So like to me, what that shows is that the Democrats aren't even identifying as liberal, much less progressive. Like they are majority, but there's this heavy population of people who are just like, I just want reasonable policy, And like to me, I don't really see that as an ally for radically progressive people. I see that as an ally for people who are more reasonable. And the reason why I bring this up is this map that everybody's talking about. Okay. I did just flash my Twitter. I'm gonna blur that shit. Whatever. So this is support for secession. And what people bring up is the Northwest. We got the Democrats who are like, yep, rearing, ready to go. And then you got Republicans in the South who are just like, ooh, baby, just give me that. Just look away, Dixie. Look away. And then you got that 50% independent. So like they're really fucking ready. But like notice that outside of the South, the largest independent population and the only independent population to vote for secession, over 40%, other than the South, is in the heartland, in the Midwest, and independents are more likely to want to succeed than Republicans and Democrats. This, I think, is a wild situation that I think is just totally flying by people. I think people are just totally not mentioning this because maybe they don't think it's important. But to me, being a Midwesterner, what this really highlights is this unserved population, this unserved public, where it's like the Republicans in the Midwest want to be a part of the Republican Party. The Democrats in the Midwest want to be a part of the Democratic Party. They seem to have that shit figured out. But the independent voters feels, I would say, almost betrayed, or at least invisible to both parties. They do not feel a part of this regular dynamic. They don't feel at home in American politics. And I think that would really make sense, where it's like, because like this is where the Democrats are based. You got the West Coast and the Northeast Coast. Where are the Republicans based? Well, you got the South, and then you got the mountains. What's really for the heartland? What is really for Michigan? What is really for Minnesota? What is really for South Dakota? What is servicing the interests of the Midwest and keeping the heartland going? I don't really see, I don't really think it's a well-served population. And that's why I really want to directly address that, because that's what I want to build. As it's like, if you identify as an independent in the Midwest, let me be your guy. Fuck these people. You know, it's like, I don't want a Republican or a Democrat. I don't want either of them. I don't trust the politicians in the Midwest right now. Let's try to start up something else. Let's try to get a different movement going. I started a satirical one, DTF, Detroit Transit Foundation. Drown Detroit. Let's make these fucking highways canals. You know what I'm saying? I think it's like, let's have fun with it. Let's have a character. Let's have an identity. Let's actually start like talking about our issues instead of like fucking, like, why do we have to debate fucking California, dude? Who gives a shit? And part of me believes that the reason why people aren't talking about this is because, or part of the reason why people vote Democrat in Michigan so highly is that because the Democrats misrepresent the interest of specifically the center-left. They guilt-trip them into supporting celebrity politicians instead of sober policies because somehow the Democrats are represented by a discrepancy of 10%. So I think it's just like the celebrity of these politicians. I don't think that, you know, I don't really trust that it's entirely honest. And as Michiganders, like things that are actually held by all Michiganders, like pretty across the board, are that they like. So let me just pull that back up. So this is the 2020 electorate, and like here you can say 33, 33, 30. You know, and then that turned into 34, 33, 29. And you can see, like, independence rose. So, like, we got a 4-point gain from 94 to 19, yet we are so underrepresented in Michigan. But going back to this stuff, human environment. So, you know, this stuff makes sense. This stuff makes sense. This stuff makes sense. Most people are pro-gay in Michigan. You got the Republicans. Of course, the abortion shit. But the stuff that's interesting to me is so first off, the moderates, but then also, so most people believe in heaven and hell. Pretty much, like, people aren't real. Fuck, scripture? Wait, which one is it? Yeah, interpreting scripture. But we're pretty much agreed on that one, where it's like word of God should be taken literally, word of God shouldn't be taken literally. But what I found was really interesting is that common sense is a really commonly held value in Michigan, where it's like 52% of Democrats, 54% of independents, and 41% of Republicans agree that common sense is where right and wrong come from. Nobody thinks it's philosophy. Some people think it's religion. Republicans are heavy to say that it is religion, but most people in Michigan just, yeah, it's common sense. Everybody's just like, I don't know what the fuck's happening. I mean, like, everybody's just wonder, which I think is a funny question. Everybody feels spiritually at peace in Michigan. Everybody, no matter their political party, is like, yeah, at least once a week, I feel a deep spiritual peace. I'm just like, you know, sitting at home watching fucking House of Cards. Just, you know, yeah, I'm a good person. God loves me. I've made my sacrifices. Well, don't you know, it's, I just try my best, and, you know, it's like, it's okay. I think that God will forgive me for my shortcomings, and I think it'll just go all right. That's definitely, that's way deeper Midwest, but like, nobody meditates though. Everybody's like, I'm very spiritually at peace, but I could not be arsed to find the time to meditate. We try to pray. We try. No, most people do not pray. No, some people don't know. Yeah, I'm in that. I'm an independent who doesn't know what the frequency of my participation in prayer is. So that's what I'm going with. Everybody pray. Everybody pray. Except for, like, yeah. Church, obvious. Everybody's, like, everybody's pretty religious. Everybody believes in God. Everybody, like, is, like, pretty even on who has children. And then we got that 3% lead in education. Got that 3% lead in not being educated. Yeah. So we're the dropouts. Democrats are the most educated. But, like, yeah, Republicans are pretty back about what's that? That's interesting. So there's more college graduates in the Republican Party and less in the Democrat Party, but there's more postgraduate graduates in the Democrat Party and less in the Republican Party. I find that fascinating. Income, yeah, we are poor. We're poor. Who would have fucking knew? The rich like the Dems and the Republicans pretty evenly. And that's like the middle class swings Republican. And then, yeah, the poor, we go independent. This seems pretty average. There's like a 2% discrepancy, 3% discrepancy at most. Approximately 90% of Michigan is third generation. Jesus. Obviously the racial breakdown. Then, yeah, we are a slight minority. The Republicans are the only people who are slight. I don't understand. Where did the men go? Because we have women are 49% of one party, 52% of another party, and 54% of another. It seems like there's missing men somewhere. That is just a lot of fucking women. And then, so it's like mostly the independents swing young. It's mostly, and then like as you get older, you end up on either side of the aisle. The Republicans have a slight lead with older people. But yeah, Michigan's a very even state. And I would say this is because we don't really belong to a party. I don't think that we're incredibly loyal to parties. But, wow, the Protestants are Democrat here. That's... Huh. So it's only the evangelicals. Huh. But, so I'd say Michigan's like it's one of the most purple states you could fucking find. It's pretty mixed on politics where you just have people who are over here, and then you have people who are over here. And I think they just stand there. It's like, because ultimately it's like, yeah, they believe in guns. Yeah, they believe in God. Yeah, they believe in, like, getting together. They believe in winter. They believe that, I think that people in Michigan are more likely. So if you get, like, a Michigan Democrat, I think a Michigan Democrat's more likely to get along with a Michigan Republican than they are to get along with, let's say, a Oklahoma Democrat or a Oregon Democrat, And I think that that's just because there is this sort of monoculture that is regional with the Midwest. And I think that there's something deep to that is of a cultural foundation. I think it's enough to make us distinct and not fit within the Republican-Democrat paradigm, because, and I think that this is why we're all swing states, is that because to really win the Midwest, I think you'd have to cater to the Midwest, and I think that is the discussion of incredible stores of natural beauty. There is a lot of natural beauty, and there's a lot of underdeveloped cities. So like you have this incredible urban areas, these incredible pieces of architecture that just aren't really taken care of. If you look at Chicago, if you look at St. Louis, if you look at Detroit, there are buildings here that are world class. You put them in any fucking where else and they look at home. They're gorgeous. So the idea that I would say is like there's some special interest that you can't really hit outside of the Midwest, where it's like this sort of, because I do think that, like, I think that being an immigrant in LA is very different than being an immigrant in Chicago or being an immigrant in Detroit, because it's like, yeah, sure, you might be from somewhere else, or your grandparents might be from somewhere else, but you're fucking here now, bud. Like, you're one of the family now. Like, it's just like being in Michigan, and especially living in the areas that have a high level of immigration. You don't think of them as you don't think of it as like, oh, that's the immigrants in America. You think of them as a part of Michigan, where it's like, these are Michiganders now. They like share an accent with us. They're also really polite, like there's just things that happen, like, where it's like they also are an authentic part of the Midwest culture. And so it's like, I'm looking to try to create an idea that unifies all of these people, where it's like you have the 8th generation American who owns a farm, that whatever, and then you also have like, a fucking Irish immigrant that like has a townhouse in a fucking house, and then you have like, black families and Hispanic families and Muslim families who are, you know, more traditional in their orientation. And like you can just talk about common issues with these people where it's like, all right, so how do we get into air quality? How do we address like commuters? How do we address commuting? Because everybody drives right now. We're always spending money on roads. We're always widening them, and it's never getting better. So it's like maybe we could discuss drowning Detroit. No, but maybe we could discuss a train or something like that, where it's just like alternatives to get less people on the roads. First off, so we'd have more time to fix them. It'll be less of an issue. But also, so just to, you know, get different lifestyles accommodated for. There's really no other options in Michigan, and I feel like nobody's happy with this. Because if you're a child, what the fuck are you going to do? You can't go outside. You got to drive everywhere. So you can't really just leave your kid out to play unless you do it in, like, Detroit or Grand Rapids, you know? And, like, it's... I think that there's a lot of issues that hit upon a much wider base than Republican or Democrat, you know? Where it's like... I think we can all understand that taxation is inevitable. So I think we can all understand that we're going to have to pay taxes somewhere. How should we do that? I would say, like, it would make... There's a lot of different things to propose. But I do think that, like, it's like, yeah, on the thing, it says the Democrats think that we need to have a bigger government. But I don't really know if Midwesterners want that. I think that they're just like, I want a better government. But if you really ask them, when has the government ever used power effectively and when was it good? They'll say, never. And then you'll say, so why do you want anyone in the government to have power? And they'd be like, oh yeah, we should probably have a smaller one. And it's like, yeah. And then let's like rebuild like a different system within that where it's like, let's have a Midwest transportation system. Let's have a Midwest culture of charity. And like, let's keep ourselves afloat. Let's like build an industry together as people so that there's like this common, essentially like what labor is. You know, like if you have like labor in the UK, what it started as was an idea for like, you know, workers and like the idea of improving life situations, you know? So it's like if we could just do something that was like a Midwest quality of life party or like, you know, essentially a moderate position, a moderate proposal. Just to say that it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, we are, you know, I think we all value comedy. I think we all value just... They're like independence and things like this. I think that there is a common culture. I think that there is a monoculture in the Midwest, which is criminally underrepresented and underserved by this pseudo divide that they want us to believe is legitimate and real. Anyways, that was today's episode of High Lit. Thanks for checking in. Happy Tuesday. Be back tomorrow on Wednesday because it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday show. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Shout out Lotus Eaters because they're the fucking people. Anyways, this is Koji Tavi. I love this guy. He's a close personal friend of mine. We've had his music on the show countless times. I don't know exactly how I can play this because I have a speaker. So, my idea is that what we're going to do is we're going to take this chord. You know, at High Lit, we're only the most professional. So we're going to take that cord, plug that in, and now I'm going to turn this off. So that's off. And now we take its setting here. Properties? I don't know. I don't think I can get the music because last time I tried this, nothing. Maybe it's coming through. I'm gonna hope. It says on the screen. I'm hearing sounds, so it should be coming through. That'd be ideal for it to be coming through. Whew. So yeah, now as you can tell, we're doing the scripts now. We're also gonna be on OnlyFans, so please. I'm working on it. We're either doing Gumroad or OnlyFans. I really want OnlyFans. I think it'd be fucking hilarious because then it'll be scripts and like I do new drawings. I just study. You know, it's whatever you want to fucking call it. It's drawing. And so that would be like, you know what, relevant for fucking OnlyFans. But I think that those two would be funny for like $5 a month. So that's like my plan for monetizing the show eventually. I I am fighting with OnlyFans staff to get this done, though. They have rejected me 3 times. Oh, we thought it'd be so fucking difficult. You know, MRX Plays already has theirs fucking up and running. You know, I'm fucking behind. God damn. It's gonna be a crazy fucking decade. Looked like that was hanging. Probably should have done a better job at introducing the show. So, Highlit is your source for psychedelics, cannabis research, classic lit, independent music, urban planning. I look fatter in this shirt, that's funny. Yeah. Cannabis science, independent music, urban planning, classic lit, that stuff. High culture, both as in street culture and academic culture. That's the idea, that's the pun. High lit. But yeah, so thanks for checking it out. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. We do it 3 hours a week. I have a Minecraft world that I show off. We could also do a Discord channel. Yeah. The point here is just to show off music that I have permission to use that I like. I don't think I can show my journal on stream, but I think I could draw on stream because, dude, they have some crazy shit. They have some crazy shit on YouTube. It's educational content, you know? How would it, I'm teaching people how to draw or something. Does it count as educational content if you're learning? Like, it's filming, it's a film of me learning. Is that not educational? It has to do with me receiving an education. Or earning an education. Which I guess is another interesting question. Is can one receive an education, or does one make an education? I would argue that everybody is an autodidact. I would say that you can receive no information. You must earn information, which is why Kierkegaard says that you must build things. You must give people the tools to build towards something themselves. You cannot simply explain it to them. You cannot give them the right answer. You have to give them the environment in which the right answer can come from. Yeah, we get high. So I hope that's working. I'm gonna just turn it up. And So again, that was Koji Tavi, a close friend of mine. He is living in Louisville. There you can see it's Cogitavi. Very fucking talented guy. Nothing but great music. Also check him out on SoundCloud. Links in the description because of course we support the effort here at High Lit. Anyways, so we're gonna start doing some stuff. We're gonna start just posting on the Lotus Eaters because I think that we have a common interest. I think that we do have a common interest. I think that there is I think that ultimately politics are very shallow because I think that people change. I think that opinions are malleable. So I don't think that loyalty in that regard really matters. But I do think that there is something about your frame of reference. And again, what is your entire life at once? You know, it's like, what is your narrative? And I think that there is the importance of having a narrative which makes sense within human history, you know, where it's like not making sense of all human history, but living as people have before in some way, you know, where it's like you have to have, if you don't come from a long line of people, where there's like, you know, an archetype that you're embodying, really fucking hard, dude. Really fucking hard to make this up all on your own, you know? So I do think that there is something important in the classic literary worldview that comes with a sort of just idea of morality. Because again, as people can tell, I'm very anti-power. I don't like the idea that everything is power. I think that it's a very dangerous and dehumanizing idea because I think it takes away from the experience. But anyways, thing that I want to talk about, the thing that we've been talking about is just that sort of general idea that individualism is flawed. So, individualism is very good, but at the same time, it cannot account for an entire life. And that's where it's like, I think that these narratives are important. What I would call poetic narratives, or you can call a hero's journey, or things like that. Even the tarot deck fulfills this. But it's just the idea of having something that's positive, you know, where it's like, if you're honestly thinking that humans are a drain on the earth, and are like awful, it's like, it's a hard load to bury, dude. You're like literally Christ trying to die for all of our sins, you know, like that's just difficult. So I do think that these conversations and like also talking about becoming a more moderate public is important. But that's about it for today's show. We'll again be back tomorrow. I'm Carlisle Fletcher. I'm a journalist. Been working in the field for a while. And I'm much more interested about democratizing the conversation. My point is to give tools to the public. That's why I've like literally spent my adult life giving people information. You know, where it's like, I think that the more information that you have, the more that you can make sense of what the fuck's going on around you. And that's why I'm also trying to just start a conversation about just de-radicalizing people, basically. Because it's not a happy life, and you'll be much happier if you can talk to normal people and out in public and just generally, you know, muck about with who lives. You know, so I think that there's just something to be said about sticking to people who are real. But anyways, that was today's show. Thank you so much for checking in.